Hey guys, welcome back to another sports stuff video. Today, we're going to be talking about all the NFL hires at head coaching around the NFL and just kind of breaking down a couple of thoughts I have about each one of them and giving them all a grade. So if you guys do enjoy, please give it a like, comment, subscribe, hit notification bell to be notified when I post next. Let's get into it. So first up, we have Jim Harbaugh going to the LA Chargers. He's a great swing at an offensive head coach because not only is he an offensive head coach, he's a proven offensive head coach. He's coming off a national championship at Michigan. He went 49, 22, and 1 in the NFL, 5 and 3 in the postseason, including a Super Bowl appearance. Now, I actually was too young to remember this. I Googled why did he leave the NFL? Like 49, 22, and 1, 5 and 3 in the postseason. This dude was amazing in the NFL. Apparently, Trent Baalke, now the GM of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Trent Baalke and him had a disagreements, we'll say, on how to manage the roster, and it led to such a bad breakup that Jim Harbaugh went to college. And he not, he didn't want to come back to the NFL for 9 years. He's finally back with the LA Chargers. I have a feeling that he's not the GM, but he'll have a really big impact and opinion on who's on the roster and how they move forward. So I do think that was part of it. And I think that will be great for Justin Herbert because, again, a proven head coach who's an offensive mind, who's going to put you in the best position that you can. That's really good. It might take a year or two to fully settle. I don't know if they're going to be competing for the division. This roster's in a really tough spot. A lot of expensive guys, a lot of guys that just aren't performing up to their contract or to where their draft stock. It's a really tough job for Jim Harbaugh to take on. But I do think they had an understanding of as long as Justin looks good, the roster can be, in flux. So I'm going to be giving the grade of Jim Harbaugh a A. Why did it do that? An A. Because I think that is the most fair for Jim Harbaugh. Next, we have Dan Quinn going to the Commanders. It was an interesting move going with a DC to head coach. They have the number 3 pick with a chance of moving up for a quarterback if they want Caleb Williams or Drake May. They could trade up to one of those picks. So in my opinion, if I'm the Commanders, I think that they were really going hard for Bobby Slowick or Ben Johnson. I think that they both are just like, you know what, we don't want the job, and they had to go to their third tier option. You know what I mean? If we don't get these two guys, we want Dan Quinn. He's been a high head coaching candidate for 2 years now. I remember last year he was gaining a lot of speed and decided to come back to Dallas for one more season. And I truly believe that if Mike McCarthy got fired, Dan Quinn would be the head coach of the Cowboys right now. I think that's the only reason he stayed. And the fact that he left tells me that Mike McCarthy has his job safe. And that there's no chance of him getting fired mid-season with Dan Quinn and then become the interim and then get the full-time job. Not the move I would have went with. I definitely would have gone with the offensive minded head coach. I'm not saying Eric Bieniemy. I'm not saying other guys like Dave Canales got hired. I wouldn't say any of those guys. I would have gone hard for Ben Johnson or Bobby Slowick and said whatever you want, we'll give you. But if they didn't want to come to the Commanders, fair game. But I would have gone with the offensive minded head coach. A couple guys that didn't get hired that I really would have considered more than Dan Quinn. But I guess they wanted more of a proven head coach that had proven to be up to snuff in the NFL. Like Dan Quinn is not the worst head coach in the NFL. He's a fine head coach. Dallas pass defense was top of the league. They had a top 5 pass defense. I think a really top 10 rush defense. And with that roster, especially at linebacker, how depleted they are. At corner, you lose Trey Diggs immediately, and you have Deron Bland step up. At safety, you just have a rotation door at safety. Dan Quinn really did do the most with what he can, and he helped develop one of the best pass rushers in Micah Parsons. So I am going to be a little rude with the grade. I'm going to give it a C. I think they could have done better at head coach. I think Dan Quinn is a fine head coach, but I think with what you have on the team offensively, and you have a number 3 overall pick, and you can move up to number 2 or number 1 to grab Drake May or Caleb Williams, I think going with Dan Quinn, I'm not going to call it a weak move or a scared move. I think it's okay, we'll take Dan Quinn. We just had Ron Rivera, a DC, as a head coach. We're going to have another one. Let's settle. Maybe we don't take a quarterback at number 3. Maybe we don't trade up. Maybe we trade back now, because we have Sam Howell. I think that this means that Sam Howell will more than likely be the quarterback. I think Eric Bieniemy could come back to be the offensive coordinator. I think there's a lot of people that could be retained on the staff. I just don't like it. It's not the flashiest pick. It's not the pick that I would have done. It's not a pick that if you gave me my top 5 guys for Washington, I don't think Dan Quinn would have been on that list. I think I would have had a couple. I think I would have had Edro Overo. I probably would have had Mike McDonald. I would have had one of the younger guys. I think this is a young team that's gonna take a little bit of time to develop. Dan Quinn is more of a old timer, I'll say. Not like he's gonna, you're gonna make the playoffs immediately, but I think he doesn't want to wait around to try and compete. He would have rather gone to if Seattle had hired Dan Quinn, that would have been like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Their roster ready to compete. They just needed a good head coach that knows how to call defense. This, I think they're a few steps away. Now with the Dallas pass defense being top of the league, Commanders have a really good front seven, with a lot of high upside as well. So I'm actually really intrigued to see that maybe with Dan Quinn, we can not worry about their pass defense. We saw that Dan Quinn can do what he can with the pass defense. Maybe because the Dallas Cowboys weren't the best at run defense. Maybe with the better personnel in the front seven, maybe Dan Quinn gets his defense to a top of the league defense, and I'm wrong in a year, which I could see happening. But I'm gonna give it a C. Raheem Morris with the Falcons. Was shocked to see, honestly. Same thing. I thought they were gonna go with a young offensive coordinator, but I forgot how much experience Raheem Morris had in his career. This job was filled pre Bobby Slowick and Ben Johnson returning to their respective teams. So this is the guy they wanted. They wanted Raheem Morris. Again, experience on both sides of the ball. He's been an offensive coordinator, a defensive coordinator, a quarterbacks coach, a DB coach, a linebacker coach. This dude's been all over. I really like his coordinator hires. He brought over Zach Robinson, who was actually getting some head coaching hype, which was shocking. He was a passing game coordinator for the Rams, but he gets the OC job in Atlanta, which I think he's gonna love to have in Atlanta. He brought over oh my gosh, he was the DB coach for the Rams as well. Brought him over Lake. Oh, it's something like Jimmy Lake. Is it Jimmy Lake? Former head coach of Washington. Brings Jimmy Lake over to be DC. They retain the special teams coordinator because Young Wei Koo is a great kicker. Don't need to mess anything up. Let's keep the special teams coach. Yeah, he's a Super Bowl winning DC, and their defense was a big reason why they were in that Super Bowl and won that Super Bowl. So Raheem Morris is more than qualified to be a head coach. Former Falcons interim head coach when Dan Quinn got fired in 2021. He went, I think, 4-7 with a really bad roster. I think Raheem Morris, I'm going to give it a B. I think it's a safe pick. Again, he's not a quarterback whisperer. He's not an offensive coordinator. He's definitely more of a defensive coordinator guy. But his defense needs help. So I'm A-okay with Zach Robinson coming over to be the OC. Raheem Morris, again, has history on the offense and can kind of help whoever they draft, whoever they sign to be that quarterback of the future. Maybe they try and get Desmond Ridder another season and draft a quarterback next year. But I like Zach Robinson with all these weapons and see what they can do. I'm going to give it a B for Raheem Morris because not only is he a good head coach and a good coach, he's putting together a room full of good coaches. It's exactly what you need in the NFL. Then the Panthers grabbed Dave Canales. In my opinion, Bryce Young is fixed. Obviously, he has a very quick turnaround from quarterbacks coach to head coach. For 13 years, he was in Seattle with Russ and Pete Carroll. And last season, Geno Smith had his best career year, a bounce back, a comeback player of the year year. And Dave Canales was a quarterbacks coach. And because of that, he got an offensive coordinator job in Tampa Bay and a quarterbacks coach. And guess what? Baker Mayfield had the best year of his career. So Dave Canales comes into situations and fixes quarterbacks, as we've seen the last 2 years in a row. You're playing the hot hands. I'm expecting big things from Dave Canales. I thought, again, he was the guy that if you're going to hire a guy who's been a coordinator for 1 year, he's the guy that I feel the most confident in. Because, again, 13 years in Seattle with Russ. We saw Russ develop and change throughout those 13 years. And I'm genuinely impressed that as the quarterback's coach, you could help Russ throughout as he aged, his game aged with him. Then with Geno Smith, you built a quarterback, basically, that led the league in completion percentage, didn't make dumb mistakes. Then in Tampa, with all those the plethora of weapons, you get Baker Mayfield to look the best he has. A lot of those dumb mistakes of running outside the pocket to the right and just throwing a chuck ball that I'm so used to seeing. He really toned down on that. I think Dave Canales was a big reason why. Again, I expect big things from Dave Canales. Therefore, I am giving it a B+ for the Panthers. I'm excited to see what Bryce Young and Dave Canales can do. Again, one-time head offensive coordinator, but he was a quarterbacks coach for a Hall of Fame quarterback that helped him age his game, fixed a journeyman backup quarterback into a starter, fixed Baker Mayfield, a former number 1 overall pick who was on the downturn of his career, fixed him to get a massive extension from I'm expecting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, to now the former number one overall pick in Bryce Young, who had a really bad rookie season, but has the tools to be successful. So I'm really excited for Dave Canales, and he is building a stellar coordinating room, right? He's keeping Edro Overo, he's keeping their special teams coordinator. I believe he's getting the run game coordinator from the Rams with Kyron Williams. So I'm excited to see what Miles Sanders can do in year 2 of the Panthers. I'm giving it a B+, all around great from Dave Canales so far. I expect them to try double their wins from this past season, which won't be hard to do. 1-2 isn't really hard. Got him. Then we have Gerard Mayo of the Patriots. It's a new era in New England. Obviously, Gerard Mayo is formerly coached and team, I guess, co-workers of Bill Belichick. And in his contract had that if Bill retired, Gerard Mayo would take his place. And the person who put that in his contract was Bill Belichick. Yeah. In his contract, Bill Belichick put in Gerard Mayo's contract that he's gonna get like if Bill Belichick leaves, Gerard Mayo's the next head coach. So they didn't even need to interview anyone. They just hired Gerard Mayo because in his contract they had that stated. Alex Van Pelt is their new OC and DeMarcus Covington is their new DC. I think that's really good hires. AVP obviously from the Browns. I didn't hate anything he did. He was never the play caller. He will be the play caller now. I'm excited to see what he can do after learning underneath Kevin for 4 years. Runs more of a West Coast offense, go off the run game. I'm excited for him. And DeMarcus Covington was their D-line coach this past season. And their D-line was one of the best in the NFL. I think they were top 10 in pressure rates. Really good. I'm interested to see what happens with Steve Belichick, but I just don't know what to expect from Gerard Mayo. He's never been a head coach before. Didn't coach college. Didn't coach high school. He played, took time off, came back to be a coordinator for Bill Belichick. Like, I don't know what to expect. I expect good things because Bill Belichick trusts him, and Gerard Mayo and his presser showed personality, which is what I love in head coaches. But he was a co-play caller with Steve Belichick. So any success he had as a DC, he was the co-play caller. Him and Steve, I believe, was the linebackers coach, and Gerard Mayo, I can't remember what they were. I think they were both co-play callers with Bill Belichick, because Bill Belichick called defense, and then he gave up the rights to Steve and Gerard. So I don't even know what to expect from him. Sorry. I have to wait and see. Therefore, I am giving it a C+. I like the hire. I like the coordinator hires. I just need to see him. Again, I don't think this means that Gerard Mayo is is going to be a worse head coach than Dave Canales, let's say. I just don't know what to expect. So from the hire and the options that were available in free agency of head coaches, I'm giving it a C+. Next is Antonio Pierce of the Raiders. Raiders get their guy, man. I mean, after this past season, you had to sign Antonio Pierce. Huge fan of personality head coaches. Dan Campbell, Antonio Pierce joined that ranks. Gerard Mayo immediately joined the ranks as well. Pete Carroll was a personality head coach. I'm trying to think of other personality head coaches in the NFL. Mike Tomlin is a personality head coach. Every time he's in the media, he's a funny. I genuinely love Mike Tomlin. He's just a funny guy. He went 5-4 as an interim last year. That's more wins than I think Mike McDaniels has ever had in a season as a full-time head coach. But 5-4 as an interim last year. The team loved him. They're keeping most of their staff together, which I think is really important as well. Because if your staff goes 5-4, all you need to do is add little coordinator job, like maybe a new DB coach, a new wide receiver coach. But they're keeping Patrick Graham as DC, and they're keeping Scott Turner as offensive coordinator. So I agree with keeping the coordinator jobs and then adding more fluff around those coordinator jobs. I think they will be in contention for the division. I think I need to see what quarterback they go with. If it's Aiden O'Connell, we know his floor and his ceiling. Yes, I did say earlier with the Chargers, it might take a year to settle. I think the Raiders are in a better spot financially than the Chargers, but I think the Chargers have the better roster. But I think the Raiders are in a better spot to get better this season. That's why I'm giving it a B-. Again, it was an interim head coaching job. I want to see what he can do as a full-time head coach, and I want to see what they do with quarterback and how they can improve this roster. Because again, I think the Chargers have a better roster, but I think they have a better chance of being contention this season. Next, we have Brian Callahan. You son of a gun. Vrabel got shafted. Let's just let's be honest here. Mike Vrabel was a great head coach. Shocked he didn't get one of these positions filled. Maybe he's taking a year off from coaching, but Mike Vrabel got shafted. But Brian Callahan is a great head coach. Callahan with Levis will be really good. We saw him with Jake Browning, that it wasn't Burrow that made Brian Callahan. It was kind of like a co-pairing of like good coordinator, good quarterback, good coordinator, okay quarterback that he elevated to pretty solid quarterback. He's putting together a really good young and vet staff. I'm gonna put in a clip right here because while recording the video earlier, it broke that Bill Callahan is leaving the Browns to go to the Titans, and I might cry. So here's that clip. Oh man, guys, Bill Callahan just got signed to the Titans. Crap! Oh my god, I'm hurting. I'm hurting. Oh, I'm hurting. I'm hurting. I'm hurting. I'm hurting. I need to see if this is true. Oh. Browns offensive line coach Bill Callahan, highly regarded as one of the best O-line coaches in the NFL, has been granted permission to leave and join the Titans as part of his son Brian Callahan's coaching staff, a significant hire in Tennessee. Dang! Dang, dang, dang! I'm not even to that page yet, but I was going to talk about it. I'm going to cut this and put it with the... I don't want to take away from Drive Mayo's moment. I'm going to cut this right here and put it in the Titans. So I'm going to be like, oh yeah, look at how I just reacted while recording the video. Oh, it sucks. Anyway, maybe we'll get the Seattle offensive coordinator, the Seattle offensive line coach that we interviewed for OC. Maybe he'll come on as our new offensive line coach. I think it's Nick Anderson, or is it Jack Anderson? I don't really care. I'm sad right now. But getting an offensive coordinator, head coach is ideal for a young quarterback. And we saw what he can do with Jake Browning. I think Will Levis is steps above Jake Browning. So I think you could easily get 3,500 yards, 28 touchdowns, 10 interceptions out of Will Levis and be good this year. So I'm excited for Brian Callahan. He did it right. He waited 3 or 4 years as an offensive coordinator, then became a head coach. I don't want to diss Dave Canales, but I like when coordinators take the time to develop those skills that you need to have as a head coach. And Brian Callahan did that. That's why I am giving him a higher grade as an A-. I think that Brian Callahan was one of the best offensive coordinators that were available for head coaching jobs, and I'm very excited to see what he can do in Tennessee. And finally, we have Mike Macdonald with the Seahawks. Seattle got their game. They got their guy, man. Mike Macdonald is a great defensive coordinator. He's a great defensive schemer, and I'm excited to see what he can do as a head coach. He led the #1 defense in the NFL since coming over from Michigan, actually. Mike Macdonald's been great. He's just been great. Seattle needed a defensive head coach. Their offense, yes, you lose Shane Waldron, but I think you can get almost any offensive coordinator you want in Seattle. I mean, you got all the wide receivers you want. You got a tight end. You got great running backs. You got a solid to great offensive line and a solid quarterback to build off of. I'm very excited to see who Seattle gets as their OC because whoever they get is going to love their job, basically. Ranks were bottom three defense, whether it was pass defense, rush defense, win rate percentage, pressure rate. They were bottom 3 in everything. I think they were only good at red zone defense. I might even be wrong about that, but they were bottom 3 in almost everything, and then maybe bottom 10 in some categories, but bottom defense. He's hoping to retain key coordinators, as I said in that clip. I believe it's Jack Anderson is their offensive line coach who interviewed for the Browns OC job, didn't get it. We went with Ken Dorsey. But now that Bill Callahan has left, maybe he goes back to Cleveland. Maybe he stays in Seattle as an O-line coach, or stays in Seattle and gets promoted to offensive coordinator. There's a lot that they could do in Seattle. I think he definitely wants to retain those key, really good coordinators. I'm going to give it an A+. I think Mike Macdonald was the best hire because not only is he a great coach, he's a great fit for that team. The offense for Seattle was good. You can build on it with an offensive coordinator, but that defense was horrendous. Grab the best defensive coordinator in the league this past season, who had the best defense in the league, and fix that defense overnight, basically, almost immediately. And then get a good offensive coordinator, build off of this roster you already have on offense, and upgrade the defense where you need to. I'm excited for the Seahawks, and thank God the Ravens are getting decimated, man, on defense. They lost Mike Macdonald, their DB coach, their D-line coach. Thank God, dude. Their defense was too good last year. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy. Again, I want to go over. I got Mike Macdonald as probably the best head coaching hire in the NFL this past year. I got Brian Callahan as an A-, Antonio Pierce as a B-, Gerard Mayo as a C+, Dave Canales as a B+, Raheem Morris as a B, and Dan Quinn as a C, and finally Jim Harbaugh as an A. Again, don't think that this means that your team hired a bad coach. It was more of like, of the options available, were they the best scheme fit? Were they the best overall coach they could have gotten? Or did they settle, right? And I think a lot of these teams got the guys that they wanted, but as you can see, a few of them, I'm like, I need to see why they hired this specific guy. Did they settle? Did they say, you know what, we know what we want, this guy fits it, but we could have gotten better. We wanted an OC head coach who has proven with a mediocre average to good quarterback, and we settled for this guy. Or a DC who can fix defenses. This guy had a pretty good roster last year, and he capitalized on it, and now he's our head coach. I want to see it play out. But yeah, if you guys enjoy, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification button to be notified when I post next. And I'll see you guys later. Peace and bye.